Hello guys, today is Saturday, 17th of October. I'm gonna try and get back to just kind of having my little video diary going on, talking about different subjects. Today I want to get back to the subject of Brexit. And not to the point, obviously, not gonna be talking maybe a little bit about COVID, but mostly Brexit. And I'm gonna probably start this from a little story which will probably not gonna die to me until the end of 2020, probably way longer than that. And that was after the elections of 2019, just on the New Year's. A friend of mine wrote on Facebook, and she wrote like this kind of interesting phrase: just listen to me, you are gonna have a great year. For which I wrote a reply, since by that time I was already living in Germany for a couple of years. I wrote, I probably am gonna have a great year. You, on the other hand, have just elected Boris Johnson. And I'm not having a great year. We're all not having a great year. But on the other hand, you guys have elected Boris Johnson. That's not making it any better. What can I say? I did make a video some time ago that, look, I don't really agree with many of Remainers kind of thing. You know, it's like if you wanted to stay in Europe, you could have done the same thing I did, which is like, unfortunately, after nearly 20 years of living in England, I just packed my bags and moved to Europe. I did. And I think if you really wanted to stay part of Europe, they should have done the same. But they didn't. Because they did not have what it takes to actually do something productive, except complaining online permanently. Telling how Brexit is breaking this and breaking that, etc., etc., etc. But I'm like looking at what is happening in UK right now. I'm sorry guys, I know probably people will say that, hey man, you live in Germany, right? Stick to Germany. Guys, look, I'm still a British citizen. I still hold a British passport. I'm hoping I'm not gonna have to change that. I would really like to remain a British citizen. I've made a few brilliant friends in Britain. You know, I've made amazing people there. And, you know, it's like having to change my passport just so I could stay in Europe. Probably not something I'm super keen on doing, but I'm probably gonna have to, with the way things are going, okay? But look, we are talking about a guy who had promised everyone a ready-baked deal with EU without giving any details. And as we can see now, there is a reason he did not give any details, because there were none. Not only did UK go from a ready-baked deal with EU, which would guarantee everybody to continue as pretty much normal, not only did UK went from that, but UK has gone to the point of breaking a legally binding agreement with Europe, taking laws to break a legally binding agreement with other countries, and to now telling everybody that is probably not, that the deal is never gonna happen ever. And we should be ready to a no-deal Brexit. Right? Head blown. Sounds about right. So I'm just gonna pour myself another drink. Those who know me, they know it's not an alcoholic one, but a drink nevertheless. Because talking about Brexit without a drink, I don't know. It's like going to a strip bar without strip dancers, alright? It's not really working too fine. Ooh, my drink went all over the place. Sorry. So, right now what we have with Brexit is that it's a disaster. But not only is it a disaster in the fact that Boris Johnson has screwed it all up. Sorry. I'm kind of sitting really low right here. What do we have now? We have businesses which are moving their business out of UK. Right, major banks moving their offices to Amsterdam. There's a city in Germany and in France. London City getting a lot less rentals right now, I guess. Because as far as I know, for example, HSBC has already moved much of its processing power either to Europe, to Asia, or to Manchester. Good thing for Manchester, I guess, except they're not getting the highest paid jobs out there. And what else do we see? Like, I don't even know. Didn't really plan it that much. What we see is a bunch of companies which are like IT companies and other companies that work with European markets starting to open double offices. Right, I already encountered some companies like this where they would have offices in London or somewhere in UK, and then they will start opening their offices in Europe. Why? Well, because in case things go wrong, they need to be able to provide their services to the European customers and to have people which do not need a visa just to go to visit their customer office. So many jobs that beforehand would have been done out of somewhere in UK have been already moved to Europe. And even if they by some miracle they do manage to sort something out which they want, that thing is probably not gonna change. Because people make investments, so for the next few years we're kind of stuck with it. We also have a government which is, despite all the mess with the coronavirus, shows itself incapable of picking priorities. Right, in this whole mess of the things, right, where they didn't really have lots of meetings and things like this, they're trying to achieve something which is like, well, right now we are worried about, like, let's say Germans going like, well, right now we're worried about having extra couple of thousand cases of corona each day. So we're probably not gonna give much of a flying fuck about what a British government has got to say. Most of the people in the British government going like, well, we are worried about a few thousand corona cases in London alone. We're probably not too worried too much, give you too much of a fuck what the German government has got to say. Except, how can we deal with that shit? instead of worrying about how we're gonna separate borders in a year's time. A ridiculousness of the situation is that nobody knows what are the plans of the British government on coronavirus, let alone Brexit. What are their plans, how they plan to deal with the fact that so many people are losing jobs. An interesting conversation I had with a friend of mine who had lost her job right just before this corona pandemic started kicking in. She's been unemployed for nearly a year now. And she is a very highly qualified professional with years of experience. I don't know where this one going. Right, so everybody just kind of concentrates on things which are corona and not paying as much attention to things which are Brexit, which means that the guys in the British Parliament, government, whoever deals with that, can pull whatever they want. But as one thing is like, but okay, they're crazy people. They don't care about you, right? Because what they care about is getting out of EU. One thing I kind of believe is that they're caring about getting out of EU before the new tax laws kick in EU. Which essentially block tax avoidance. Right, these are the same very people who just sold off quite a few parts of the British heritage. Buildings, pictures from museums, God knows what else. You don't have to believe me, look it up, and they did write about that in Guardian even like a year ago. Maybe more. Right, so while everybody's worrying about corona, they just pull in a complete nutcase side on the Brexit. So now they tell British businesses, well, if you want to bring an employee from Europe, you're going to bring them in the same way you would bring them in from India. That kind of works for businesses who are like high tech or something like this. Doesn't really work very well for British farmers. I did make a program on British farmers and the lazy British people. You can look it up on my channel. But the British farmers who kind of have been getting away with murder, which is, I don't think, is their fault that they've been in that position. But nevertheless, they've been put in the position where they had to get away with murder, and they did. But I covered that subject in my program on the, Brexit plight of British farmers. Look it up. I'm hoping you're going to enjoy it. But yeah, they're going to have to really work hard to bring hundreds and hundreds of farm workers. I mean, hopefully the big corporations, which used to get away with murder because they simply could bring in a very cheap labor from abroad because they chose to. You know, the big companies which pay their CEOs millions of dollars or pounds, while saving every penny they can on a cheap labor from Europe. Hopefully they're going to have to start hiring British people. Maybe the wages are going to start going up, or the rents are going to start coming down. Hopefully that happens. Right, one thing which is like, these are the things which I do not hear like people talk about like some big politics, whatever. Like, oh look, our fisheries are gonna be back. What are those fisheries about? Well, this is a livelihood of like 3,000 people. I was like, okay, cool, cool. Those people need to be taken care about. The big corporations that have been bringing in cheap labor at slave level prices into UK, those are tens if not hundreds of thousands of people. Those matter more. Unfortunately, I don't hear, like, when I listen to Remainers and you go like, well, are you still not talking about the issues which led to the Brexit in the first place? You still don't hear that. Like, not on the British radio, not in the British newspapers. None of them is talking about any of that. Nobody's talking about the rents which are so high that you have to have 3 jobs just to pay rent. Nobody's talking about the fact that the basic minimum wage job is probably going to leave you homeless in most of the cities in UK. Or you're going to have to go the communist way. Yeah, a shared flat, a communal flat. In Soviet Union, those were called communal flats. Right, they even had like ironic songs about this. Like, those people who know about ex-Soviet Union, they had a band called Duna, and they had a song which was essentially called Коммунальная квартира, communal flat, about all the international people that lived in that communal flat and what they did in there and didn't do. Right, nobody talks about that. Nobody pays attention to that. These things I don't know whether they will change or not. I mean, a friend of mine told me that, look, they're building a lot in England. I was like, yeah, because this is the way to keep the money. Because property keeps its value over a period of time. And because the people want to keep their money safe, and there's so much they can invest outside without getting caught on taxes, many are investing into property, hoping that at least that will keep them like ticking over. That is happening, but I'm not sure if there's lots of British builders working on those building sites. I wonder what will happen with those once all the Polish people have to go back to Poland. But I don't see any conversations on that subject. I don't see anybody talking about the fact that the private rail has been failing all over the place, which has been a warning long ago. I mean, some people mention, they want to privatize NHS. Yeah, they do, and they will. While people are talking about Corona and Brexit, they will privatize NHS. But I don't know. It's an entire mess. It's really hard to kind of speak about one thing and just kind of trying to make it into something understandable, because there's so many things which are happening every day, and I'm not going to be able to cover them. But overall, the Brexit seems to be a bit of an insanity. You have Boris Johnson, who doesn't know what he does on Corona, changes his mind 3 times a fucking day and doesn't even know what his own professionals have told him. The people who are telling him the things he wants to hear, he still doesn't know what the fuck they told him. I mean, compare that to Trump, who simply says, well, I don't want to hear. Boris Johnson says, I'm hearing them, I just don't know what they're saying. Same thing how it goes on Brexit. we don't have a deal, and right now they're saying that there will be no deal. All the transport links are going to be disrupted. All the companies that survive on transportation are going to be, how do I put it politely? Not doing very well. Right? From my point of view, I'm hoping that I will be able to stay in Germany, but I'm also getting ready for the fact that I might have to go back to UK because I hold a British passport. But, well, at least I tried. Not hoping for much, but at least I tried. Well, you see that people who are talking about how, okay, look, we lost, the Remainers have lost, let's work on making this happen. And again, I can see this kind of attitude, I can hear these people talking, and to be honest, I hear them talk and I'm a Remainder and I want to kill them. That pompous attitude, the pompous patronizing attitude towards people, which comes across from many Remainers who are the, how do I put it, better educated crowd. Well, I told you it's gonna be shit, but when it's more shit, I'll be here waiting to hold your hand. Shut the fuck up, you fucking cunt. I'm not going to be naming any names, but if you listen to British radio, you probably know them. Right? It's like, you still get the point where the people who are Remainers don't seem to connect with what are the reasons for the Leave vote. It was an interesting story where I have met somebody here in Berlin. I've met somebody who was doing social studies in Manchester. And it was a conversation which was nearly set me on fucking fire. Where I was chatting to this guy, and I was like, look, I was talking to people in different parts because of my job and because I haven't been around. And these are things I was talking about, them complaining about, overpriced rent, undercut wages, really low wages, the basic wage is way below wage should be, right? They're struggling to find proper jobs because most of the companies wouldn't hire them. Instead, they'd rather bring people from Eastern Europe who don't know their rights and who can be used, like I say, like as slaves. Right? We covered a few things and he was like, oh, where do you talk with people? I was like, well, where did you go? Which uni you've been? It's like Manchester Uni. It's like, well, you can go in Manchester, you can go down most of the streets, there are pubs in there, you can talk to people. He was like, where did you find them? Where did I find the pubs in Manchester? They're in fucking Manchester, you moron. Right, and the place where we're chatting is it was a bar owned by a friend of mine in here. And he looked at my face and was like, hey Yuri, here's a free Coke. Chill the fuck out, don't kill this guy. I mean, right? Just chill, just put the fire out, have a drink. Which I'm doing now. Why are you looking at these guys if you're about to rip your throat out? Where did you find the people? These are the level of conversation that is coming from the Remainers. Right? It's like, well, I didn't really have to look for them. I just had to switch on British radio, where people were phoning in and complaining about where their lives have gone wrong. overpriced rents, low wages, things like this, you know. Things that they wanted changed. Things that nobody's talking about. Why is it that people in Germany, I live in Berlin, the Berlin government last year bought up few tens of millions worth of flats in Berlin city center to then pass them on to rental companies. They have private rental companies which mostly deal with government flats, and they're limited at the amount of profit they can get from each flat, which means that the rents are reasonably cheap, like very cheap actually. Why is it that when I live in Berlin, I can get myself a studio flat, which is bigger than the one I had in Brighton, for less than 300 euros, with all bills included. And I do mean all the bills included, including internet, including the local TV license. Like this, with all those bills, the flat costs 300 euros less. Why is this possible in Berlin? Why is this not possible in London? Where in Berlin the minimum wage is 10 euros, in London the minimum wage is what, £8? So the minimum wage is lower in London on one-to-one basis, but the rents in Berlin are cheaper, and Berlin government is investing into making these rents cheaper by buying up flats, by building more flats, which are then rented out at a cheaper price. Yeah, sure, not everybody can get them, but this means that many people who would otherwise be fighting for that super expensive flats because they got nowhere else to live can now get cheaper flats. This means that the entire rent is going down. Why is it that Berlin can this year, at the beginning of this year, they have actually took a law. I'll see if I can find the article on that. I'll put it in the description of the video, where they have introduced a very clear caps on the maximum rent people can charge. And sure, there are some dodgy landlords which are trying to get away with charging more, and they trying to do their best. And sometimes they catch out people who are not from around here, but sooner or later those people catch them back. Why is it that in Germany the local governments can do that, and in England the government for the last 30 years or so have been telling everyone how European Union has made the British government to remove the caps, to remove the rent caps, to remove rent controls, because it has to be an open market and the government shouldn't really take part in it. Apparently it all came from Europe, so how come in Europe nobody noticed? How come in Europe nobody knows about this? How come there are rent controls in Belgium? How about there are rent controls in France, Netherlands, Germany, Sweden, not in Switzerland, but Austria and the rest? Please explain to me, why is it nobody mentions this when we're having those conversations? I don't know. Like, nobody talks about the things which really led the people to such a point of desperation where they said, you know what, guys, being with Europe is not really working out for us. Maybe we should leave. Why is it nobody mentions this? Why is it nobody mentions the fact that British government has been blaming every bad decision which led British workers from bad to worse for the last 30, 40 years. They've been blaming it on Europe. I mean, I understand nobody from the parliament is gonna do this. Why? Well, because the average age of British parliamentarian is around 60 years fucking old. Right? 60 years old. That's the average age of the parliamentarian. We still have the guys that's been sitting in parliament since Queen took fucking office. Right, they're the same age as the Queen of England, and I very much respect British royals. I really like that institution, I really do. But an 80-year-old lady is not really taking any law decisions. She can stay queen for another 100 years and it will be great. She does her job. She does it very well. And I hope she stays a queen for another 100 years. That would be interesting. But when you have people sitting in the parliament, like who was the last Labour leader, the one that got kicked out, right? An 80-year-old geezer going singing on some festival. I mean, the guy shouldn't be retired. He's already retarded. He should be committed. Not retired. He shouldn't be out of the parliament. He should be committed. No matter how much good he has done, he has lost touch with freaking reality. Most of these people, they have lost touch with reality. I mean, I think Boris Johnson should be committed as well, but for a completely different set of reasons. Not because of the age caused dementia, but just because he's freaking insane. But that's my personal opinion, alright? Let's not make it official. But we have a bunch of people in there sitting which are past the retirement age. How about we take some law which says, hey guys, once you have reached the retirement age, you cannot stay here. Which both concerns not only the lower, not just the parliament, but also the House of Lords. Not just the House of Commons, but the House of Lords as well. You have people in there sitting who like 80, 90 years old. What the fuck can they decide? They've been sitting there since the age of 20. How can they relate to things which happen to normal people if they have not been with normal people for like half a bloody millennia? They went to parliament at the age of 30, now they're 80. Not a millennia, wait, century. They've been in parliament for half a century, sorry. But they could be there for half a millennia, that wouldn't change a freaking thing. Okay, average age in British Parliament is nearly 60 years old. Just think about it. The oldest people are 80 plus. Maybe we should ask them to leave. Maybe then people who come to do the Brexit is gonna have the energy to do the Brexit. People complain that the parliament is half empty at least most of the time. More than half empty most of the time. Well, let me guess why. It's probably because most of the people don't have the strength to move. They're so fragile that getting their ass out of their chair into the voting on Parliament's floor is beyond them already. How can we expect them to do anything for Brexit or to have any reasonable reaction to something like a pandemic, whether we agree with the fact that it's a pandemic or not doesn't matter, how can we expect those people to do anything? I mean, just think about it. Like, if you're 40, your grandparents are probably younger than some people in the parliament. And people go like, why is it that the leaders of the parties are complete half-wits? Well, if half of your parliament is senile, how do you expect them to elect somebody with intelligence? If the half-wit seems like, oh, that's somebody I can understand. He puts a smile on my face. Let me vote for him. Or, as in favor of, what was it? Yeah, Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah, that's the guy. Right? I mean, again, it's like people who voted for him is like, yeah, I've known him for a long time, I think. He seems a bit better now than he was before. I think I didn't get along with him that much. But I think we'll change that now. I mean, we are grown-ups already, we're 70. I'm sure I can get on with him. Yeah, I could get on with him. I don't really understand those young guys anymore. Not really. All their gizmos, those mobile phones. And I mean, come on, they're not reading news from the newspaper. They're reading it from a laptop. Not something I would want for my country. Dude, you still living in 1975. Alright? Retire. Fuck off. Just having a safe seat doesn't mean that you have to stay in this seat until the day you fucking die. Right, which is probably gonna start happening pretty soon. Right? You reach a retirement age, retire. Go read a newspaper from a fucking newspaper. I prefer reading my news from a screen of my laptop. Thank you very much. Saves the planet. At least I hope so. And it's a lot faster as well. I don't have to pay for it. I'm a tight git. We need a change of elite. Alright, the Brexit is not gonna go well because of a bunch of people who are either stupid or senile, trying to deal with something, with a situation which is way beyond anything they have ever experienced, and not having the energy to do so. A bunch of old people voting for a clown that makes them smile is not a good way to move the country forward. It's a good way to turn something as bad and serious as a pandemic and as a country leaving the union of other countries into a freaking circus. Except that the circus has left. They just left the clowns behind. How about we pack the clowns and send them on with the freaking circus? Wherever they want to go. Pack them up, put them into the nicest retirement home which we can find, and let them run the country in that retirement home. Right? House of Commons on the bottom floor, House of Lords, anybody above 70, above 65 on the top floor, right? Put them in there and let them take the laws, let them do whatever they want to do. Let's pay for them to stay there. I think the country's going to be better for it. Not just the country, but the world as well. I mean, if you don't believe me, right? You just look at the last presidential debate in US. Again, a retired clown against an old senile guy, and even the clown has even went to so far that even this senile guy got pissed off with the clown. Is that what we want for Britain? Right, a few 90-year-olds which can't connect two words together which would make any freaking sense to anyone around them. I mean, and I've been defending Trump a few times, where he has done some good stuff, but this was like, what the hell is going on? Right, same thing. Do we want the same thing in Britain? Do we want the same kind of people running Brexit? Right, I hope for the sake of everything that is holy to you guys, I do hope they will kind of go and say, look, let's have an extension until we sort this coronavirus out. Let's put everything else on hold. Let's get that sorted. Let's make sure we're back to normal. And then let's have an election. Let's get rid of every parliamentarian which is over the age of 65, which would be more than half of them. Let's make sure that our parliament, medium age in the parliament, is at least 50 years old. 45 would be better. And then start it all again. Once that is done. Okay? I think for now this is everything I want to say about Brexit, because it's been a while since I've done any videos, so I'll probably try and do them weekly at least, and then I'll try to be a bit more concise with the things I'm saying, and trying to keep more on point. It's been a while since I've done any videos. So guys, if you agree with me, please do press like. I'm not asking you to subscribe, but just press a like so that I know that, hey, I made some sense. If you disagree with me, press a dislike. At least I know that I made some freaking sense, even though you disagree with it. Okay? So, I wish you all the best. I hope that the 1920 does turn out to be an okay year, even though you guys in UK have elected Boris Johnson. Thank you very much. Good night.